Arsenal had him in their sights for 18 months. Manchester United prepared a £70 million bid. Chelsea were ready to break their transfer record, but Victor Osimhen chose Galatasaray, a Turkish club over 3 Premier League giants. €75 million to stay in Istanbul instead of conquering England. The football world is calling it the most shocking transfer decision of the decade, but I'm about to reveal why Osimhen's choice wasn't shocking at all. It was genius. Stay with me because the real reason he rejected Arsenal will change how you see modern football forever. Let me paint you the picture that nobody else is talking about. December 2024, Arsenal desperately need a striker. Kai Havertz has scored 8 goals in 19 Premier League games. Gabriel Jesus is injured again. Mikel Arteta is watching Liverpool disappear into the distance, knowing his title window is closing fast. The phone rings. It's Osimhen's agent. The Nigerian striker is available for €75 million. Arsenal have been tracking him for 2 years. This should be a no-brainer. But here's what happened next that will blow your mind. Arteta said no. Not because of the money, not because of Osimhen's ability, but because he wanted Victor Gyökeres instead. Let that sink in. Arsenal's manager chose a 27-year-old striker from Portugal over the reigning African Player of the Year, and that decision just handed Galatasaray the bargain of the century. But wait, there's more to this story that nobody's telling you. According to sources close to the Emirates, Arsenal actually made contact with Osimhen's representatives 3 times in the past year. The first approach was in March 2024, offering £60 million. Napoli laughed and hung up. The second was in July, increasing to £70 million, still rejected. The final approach came in January 2025, but by then, Arsenal had already moved on to other targets. Here's the crucial detail that changes everything. Arsenal never made Osimhen feel wanted. Their interest was always lukewarm, always conditional. Sources describe their approach as being in the background, never committing fully to the pursuit. Compare that to how they chased Declan Rice or Martin Odegaard. Those were full-court presses. With Osimhen, they were playing hard to get. Now let me tell you what Galatasaray did differently, and why it proves they understand modern football psychology better than anyone in England. When Osimhen first arrived on loan in September 2024, Galatasaray didn't just sign a player, they adopted a family. The club president personally picked him up from the airport. 20,000 fans showed up at midnight to welcome him. They gave him the number 9 shirt before he'd even played a game. But here's the moment that sealed the deal. Osimhen's 5-year-old daughter started learning Turkish. She made friends with Turkish children at her international school in Istanbul. When Osimhen came home from training, she would greet him in Turkish and tell him about Galatasaray's history. According to Osimhen himself, his daughter became more passionate about Galatasaray than he was. Think about this from a father's perspective. Your child has found happiness, made friends, learned a new language. She's settled and thriving. Then Arsenal calls, offering you a chance to move to London where she'll have to start over again, leave her friends behind, adapt to another new culture. What do you choose? Money and prestige, or your child's happiness? Osimhen chose his daughter, and that decision reveals something profound about what modern footballers really value. But there's another layer to this story that exposes Arsenal's biggest mistake. Galatasaray offered Osimhen something Arsenal never could: guaranteed stardom. In Turkey, Osimhen isn't competing with Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard for headlines. He's the undisputed king of Turkish football. Every goal he scores trends nationwide. His face is on billboards across Istanbul. He's not just a footballer, he's a cultural icon. At Arsenal, he would have been another signing, another player trying to prove himself in England's ultra-competitive environment. At Galatasaray, he's already proven. He scored 37 goals in 41 games last season. He won the Turkish Golden Boot. He became the first player to score in 7 consecutive Europa League games. The Turkish media call him the Emperor. Can you imagine Arsenal fans giving him that level of adoration immediately? Here's where Arsenal's transfer strategy completely backfired. They thought they were being smart by playing it cool, by not overpaying, by keeping their options open. But modern footballers, especially elite ones like Osimhen, want to feel desired. They want to be pursued. They want to know they're someone's first choice, not a backup plan. Arsenal treated Osimhen like a backup plan for 18 months. When Benjamin Sesko rejected them, they looked at Osimhen. When Victor Gyökeres became too expensive, they considered Osimhen. When Alexander Isak proved impossible to extract from Newcastle, they remembered Osimhen existed. That's not how you sign elite players. That's how you lose them to Turkish clubs who make them feel like kings. But let's talk about the money, because this is where the story gets really interesting. Arsenal could have afforded 75 million euros for Osimhen. They spent 60 million on Martin Zubimendi and are preparing to spend 80 million on Victor Gyökeres. So why didn't they match Galatasaray's offer? Because Arsenal's recruitment team made a fundamental error. They underestimated the value of proven Premier League readiness. Osimhen has never played in England, so they assumed he'd need time to adapt. Meanwhile, they prioritized players like Gyökeres, who had performed well in the Champions League, thinking that translated better to English football. But here's what they missed. Osimhen has scored goals everywhere he's played. France with Lille, Italy with Napoli, now Turkey with Galatasaray. His goal-scoring ability transcends leagues. He would have solved Arsenal's striker problem immediately, giving them the physical presence and clinical finishing they desperately need. Instead, they're gambling on Gyökeres, a player who's never faced Premier League defenses, who's never handled the pressure of playing for a title-contending team. It's a classic case of overthinking a simple decision. The financial details of Osimhen's Galatasaray contract reveal just how much Arsenal undervalued him. He's earning 15 million euros net per year, making him the highest-paid player in Turkish football history. But here's the kicker. That's still less than what Arsenal pay Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka. They could have easily afforded his salary demands. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the package. Galatasaray offered Osimhen 15 million euros, plus 5 million in image rights, plus a 1 million loyalty bonus, plus Champions League football, plus guaranteed stardom, plus a city where his family feels at home. Arsenal offered theoretical interest and conditional pursuit. Here's the part that should worry every Arsenal fan. This isn't just about missing out on one player, it's about their entire transfer strategy being fundamentally flawed. They've become so focused on finding value, on not overpaying, on being smart in the market, that they've forgotten the most important rule of elite football. The best players want to feel wanted. Look at how Liverpool signed Darwin Núñez, despite his obvious flaws. Look at how Manchester City pursued Erling Haaland for 2 years before finally getting him. Look at how Real Madrid made Kylian Mbappe feel like their absolute priority. These clubs understand that elite players need emotional validation, not just financial compensation. Arsenal, meanwhile, are still operating like they're a mid-table club trying to punch above their weight. They make sensible signings, they find good value, they build for the long term, but they don't make elite players feel elite. And that's why they keep finishing second. The Osimhen situation perfectly encapsulates Arsenal's biggest problem. They're close enough to success to attract elite players, but not committed enough to actually sign them. They hover around the edges, they express interest, they make reasonable offers, but they don't close deals with the urgency and conviction that separates winners from almost winners. Galatasaray, meanwhile, acted like a club desperate to win. They broke their transfer record, they offered him the highest salary in their history, they made him the centerpiece of their Champions League campaign. They didn't just want Osimhen, they needed him. And he could feel the difference. So why did Victor Osimhen choose Galatasaray over Arsenal? Because Arsenal never really chose him. They considered him, they evaluated him, they kept him as an option. Galatasaray made him their priority, their king, their solution to everything. The most shocking part of this story isn't that Osimhen chose Turkey over England, it's that Arsenal let him. They had 18 months to make him feel wanted, 18 months to show him he was their first choice, 18 months to close a deal that would have transformed their attack. Instead, they played it safe, kept their options open, and watched a generational striker choose a Turkish club that understood what he really needed. Not just money, not just playing time, but respect, love, and the feeling that he was exactly where he belonged. Arsenal will probably sign Victor Gyökeres this summer and pretend they got their man. But Osimhen scoring Champions League goals in a Galatasaray shirt will be a constant reminder of what happens when you mistake interest for commitment. When you confuse evaluation for pursuit, when you forget that elite players have elite options. The shocking truth isn't that Osimhen chose Galatasaray, it's that Arsenal never gave him a reason to choose them.